At a time where true adult-sized machines cost over $10,000, some enthusiasts are simply priced out of the new sport ATV market. With this in mind, we started considering used sport ATV options that were readily available, delivering a good balance of reliability, fun, and affordability that with a little fixing up, could be purchased and ridden for years to come. Produced from 1999 till 2014, the Honda TRX 400EX, later 400X, is readily available on the used market at a reasonable price. Their engines are very reliable in stock trim with minimal maintenance, providing adequate performance for most trail riding. With handling that harkens back to the legendary TRX 250R 2-stroke, with a straight chassis and shocks that aren't blown, the 400EX is still a great handling machine even by today's standards. To find out the real cost of buying, fixing up, and building a bomb-proof 400EX, we decided to purchase one ourselves. Wanting to start with a relatively decent machine, we quickly set our sights on a 400EX on Facebook Marketplace for $3,000 that the owner said was one of the cleanest riders you'd find. We offered the owner an additional $200 if he delivered the machine, with the understanding that if it was a piece of junk, he'd be going home with his Honda. With a velvety sounding bone stock engine, we decided to keep it. Now, it's time to strip it down, see what we really paid for, what needs replaced, and what we can do to improve its reliability for many days out on the trail.
Evan Hartzell here with ATV On Demand. Today we're going to be looking over this 400EX and see what we need to do to get it back to a tight, reliable running machine. So we looked the bike over. So far what we found is the upper ball joints on the upper A-arms are a little bit loose. The steering stem's got a little bit of up and down play in it, which is most likely the bearing in the bottom of the frame. We come back here and we've noticed that the carrier bearings are loose. They got play in them, so those will need to be replaced. When we come to the back, we've noticed that there's barely any brake pad left on the rears. We're going to pull the plastics off, pull the front tires off, check the front brake pads, and we'll go from there. We removed the airbox lid and pulled the air filter, took a look at the intake. It's pretty clean, so this thing probably hasn't sucked up a lot of dirt and been abused, and the engine sounds great. Looking at the electronics, it doesn't look like anybody's messed with them too much and all the wiring's routed correctly. We did notice right here where I guess they lost a bolt, so they decided to put 3 zip ties on that to hold your foot peg in place. We got another zip tie down here holding it to the foot peg stay, and it's the same way on the other side. We knew before we got this bike that it had a tweaked subframe. For further inspection, we noticed that the subframe or the steering stem's bent also right here at the top of it, around the weld here. It's tweaked a little bit, so that's going to need to be replaced also. So we got the 400 stripped down, got the plastics off of it. We've noticed a few other little things while we were stripping it down. A few of the bolts had zip ties holding plastic pieces on. We're going to go ahead and replace all the brake pads on the quad, front and rear. We also noticed that the master cylinder bolts are stripped out, which is pretty common on these. So the brakes are a little bit squishy. The rear brakes feel good. The fronts are a little squishy, so those probably need bled once we get the new pads on there and everything. And we'll get this baby freshened up while the plastics are off, pressure wash it, and get it looking good. What's up, guys? We're back with the 400EX. A few days later, we went over this thing and got a parts list together. All of our parts are coming in, so we're going to start buttoning this thing up, get it tight again, and get it ready for the trails. First thing we noticed after we pulled the plastics off this quad, the rear subframe is pretty bent. So we're going to strip this thing down, pull everything off, and go ahead and throw a new subframe on it and get back good. When you're working on these older bikes, some parts are going to be hard to find, and if you can find them, they're outrageously expensive. So our friends over at Power Sports Nation hooked us up with a subframe for the 400EX. Those guys are tearing down dozens of bikes every week, stocking their shelf, so if you need any used parts for your bike, they probably got what you need. So we pulled the subframe out of the box from Power Sports Nation, and we just noticed right off the bat that the taillight brackets are pretty bent up on this thing. The grab bar's got a lot of wear on the back where somebody's been riding wheelies up the road. It's actually bent up too where they've had it on the back. The paint's kind of junk on it. It's straight, but it's not as good a shape as the quad we're putting it on. So we're gonna wait a little bit. We're gonna send this one back and see if they'll replace it and put something of better quality on the quad. While we're waiting on the replacement for the subframe, we're going to go ahead and get started on the steering stem. It's pretty bent, so we're going to go ahead and replace that. So we just pulled the old stem out of the 400. We're gonna go ahead and throw a new stem on it. For the new stem, we went with a Teixeira stem, aftermarket. It's a really nice stem. Since we're already here, this build's gonna go a little bit further down the road. We might as well throw a good, strong stem in it because it's probably wasn't the last time it's gonna get flipped over. There's a lot of guys that run Teixeira stuff. Cole Richardson, top guy in the XC1 class. A lot of the 4x4 Pro guys run his stuff, so we know this is gonna be a good, sturdy, strong stem. clamp. Sticker kit. Nice crinkle black powder coating on it. You can tell it's a pretty beefy stem. The stock stem is made out of just carbon steel, mild carbon steel. It's pretty weak. It's going to bend when you flip it. The Teixeira stem is a pretty beefy stem. It's 4130 chromoly, all TIG welded joints. Your steering stem flag's actually welded to the stem with a gusset in it, so you're not going to break that off or crack it. And it's a lot lighter than the stock stem too, so this is a much nicer stem. Alright, so on the Teixeira stem, when you put it in a 400 EX, you got to get the 450R Honda steering bushing, and the 450 Hondas only use one plate here to hold the bushing in place. So you actually need to order 2 of these brackets here and one 450R bushing. We messed up and only ordered the 450R front and the bushing, so we're waiting on one of them. But while we're waiting on that, we can go ahead and throw the clamps on. So there's 4 adjustments on the Teixeira stem. Clamps. So you got 4 different ways you can put your bars. We're going to start somewhere in the middle just to see how that feels. If we don't like it, it's real simple. Just pop this out, spin the bolt around, and you can move them up or back or wherever you'd like them. So we're going to start in the middle. With the addition of the Teixeira stem, we're gonna have to move up to an 1.1/8 bar. So instead of getting some just cheap, junky bars, we got the Flexx bars. It's what I personally run on my race bike. A lot of guys run them. They're a really good bar, help you with fatigue and get some of the vibration out of the quad. So we're gonna go ahead and mount these up to the Teixeira stem. They supply you with the different elastomers that you're going to need, sweep bar pad, and bars. We're wrapping some tape around this bar here just to get a little snugger fit on the throttle. The Honda throttles are a little snug when you go to bolt them up, so I just wrap a little bit of electrical tape and give it a couple millimeters of extra width. We got some new Motion Pro cables, clutch cable and a throttle cable. This clutch pulls really hard. By the end of riding it for 30 minutes, your hand's gonna be numb, so we're gonna go ahead and replace that. These things are 22 years old. And we're gonna go ahead and replace the throttle cable too. It's a little bit stiff, it's not bad, but we just know that thing's 20 years old and probably needs replaced anyways. You don't want that breaking out on the trail. So we're gonna throw some new cables on it. So we're putting all this time and this effort into this 400EX, and one popped off chain get up into your engine and bust your cases on this thing. It's going to ruin your whole investment. These bikes are getting hard to find parts for, so you might not even be able to find parts for it. We're going to go ahead and throw a Tusk case saver on the quad. Just some good insurance to make sure your chain's not going to come off and bust your motor up. And it's cheap, easy part to put on. As you can see here, we kind of got a rigged spring on there. Just doesn't look good, probably doesn't function properly. And so we went to our local Honda dealer and got a new spring. So we're gonna go ahead and install that.
After wrapping up the installation of the 400EX brake return spring, Evan came across the other TRX 450R steering stem clamp that we'd ordered a couple months before, so he was able to wrap up the installation of the larger diameter Teixeira steering stem clamp. With the installation of our steering stem completed, day one of this project is in the books. Join us for the next episode as we wrap up the build and prepare our 400EX for testing.